Hello, I am week 3 of my hysterectomy recovery. So it was 3 weeks yesterday afternoon that I had my surgery. So I wanted to come on and do a bit of a results thing, because I've mentioned some of the results from everything that's been going on, but not all of them. And I actually got a letter through from the hospital after my hysterectomy to say how that went, and there was information in there that they hadn't told me in the actual hospital after the surgery, the morning after. So I thought I'd share that with you as well, and also the other test results before, so we're kind of clear about what has been causing everything and why I ended up having a hysterectomy. So just before my hysteroscopy that I had in February, I think it was, they did like an internal scan. Like, you often have, a lot of women have had this for various reasons, but it's quite common if you're at the very early stages of pregnancy, and if you've had fertility treatment, you'd have had this a lot, because that's when I had it a lot. So when they had a look in there, they could see that I had a polyp and a fibroid, and the fibroid was about 3 to 4 centimeters big, which turns out not to be very big at all, because I've met some women who have had like 14, 15 centimetre fibroids, which is just, I can't even imagine. So when I had my hysteroscopy, they saw the polyp and they removed the polyp and took biopsies of inside my uterus and the polyp as well. So then obviously I had to wait for the results of that, which they never contacted me with themselves, but because I ended up in hospital again through loss of blood, the results actually come through, and the consultant, I think it was 2 different consultants, told me there and said that all of the biopsies were clear, and obviously the polyp had been removed. The polyp biopsy was good as well, so that was obviously a relief. I'd also had in the hysteroscopy a smear test, because I have issues around trauma to do with the fertility treatment that I had previously, around having anything done there. So they decided to do it with the anaesthetic, because it was just so much flipping easier for me and for them as well, because I literally cannot get to my cervix otherwise. So they took the smear test, and that was also clear. I don't recommend having smear tests as infrequently as I do. I'm 40 and you're allowed to have them from when you're about 25, and I have had only 3. Luckily for me, all of mine have been clear, and this one was no exception. They didn't think that there was anything wrong with my cervix, because the symptoms I was having wasn't to do with something being wrong with the cervix, but was more to do with something wrong with like the uterus. So moving on to the hysterectomy. So I previously tried hormone treatment, which I've mentioned before, and that didn't work. So the other option was to shave the fibroid, but they can then grow back. This is obviously an option that you might pick if you are wanting to try for children. You're not going to want to remove your uterus, are you? So that might be something that you want to do if you were sort of 10 years or so younger than me. But as that's all gone for me now, I decided to go for the third option, which was the hysterectomy, because obviously the hormone treatment wasn't working. My uterus is useless, it can't have children, it's just there being a pain in the neck, making me bleed profusely. Like, just to give you a demonstration, from the middle of, or an example, from the middle of December to the end of March, when I had my hysterectomy, I had bled for 85 days. And some of that was, of course, flooding, which is mostly why I ended up having to have 9 units of blood in January, February and March altogether. I had 9 units of blood and an iron transfusion. So yeah, me and the consultants were like, let's go for a hysterectomy. This is probably going to be the best option. So when they did a hysterectomy, they found some other things. So I've written them down here, so I get them right from the letter that they sent. Well, when I say a letter, they didn't send the letter, they sent it on the NHS app. I haven't actually had a letter yet, but apparently I'm getting one of them as well. So this is what they said. They found some evidence of endometriosis. What? I don't know I had endometriosis. Like, what, has that just appeared within 7 years? Or have I had that the entire time, but they completely missed it with the fertility treatment? Which obviously, because it can affect fertility, is kind of useful to know. I don't know. But apparently it was behind my ovaries, stuck to my uterus. And they managed to remove it, but preserve the ovaries, which is good. I think I explained that in the last video. Managed to preserve the ovaries, but get rid of the endometriosis. So that has now gone. I mean, I don't know whether it can grow back when you don't have a uterus at any point. I literally, you know, I know a little bit about endometriosis because there's so many women who struggle with this and they don't get the right treatment, they don't get taken seriously, they're dismissed. And some women have a huge amount of pain and a lot of endometriosis. And I think, you know, for me, I had period pains and I always thought they were normal because my mum had always had period pains. So she never thought it was weird either, because my mum had them. And I know so many women who have them. Probably like 50% of the women I know have period pains and 50% don't really have them. But even the ones that don't really have them sometimes get a few cramps and have to take paracetamol. So like, it always seemed normal to me. And I've had them since I started my period when I was like 11. So it's never been something I've sort of worried about. It's just something I've had to kind of deal with. I take some ibuprofen and paracetamol and just get on with my day sort of thing. There's been a couple of times where I've not been able to do that. I've been sick before with it. Generally, if I'm in a lot of pain, my reaction is to be sick. But that's only been a couple of times in all the years I've had periods. I've just never really thought of it. I've never had any, you know, up until obviously with the recent stuff, I've never had any long periods or overly heavy periods. It's only with what's happened recently that that's been the case. So I don't really know, but it is a little bit annoying to think that that might have been there when I was having fertility treatment and possibly could have been removed. I mean, I know kids aren't in our future now. I've accepted that. So I'm sort of angry for previous me that something might have been able to done to help and they just didn't do it. They didn't investigate, didn't do the proper investigations. So yeah, that's a little annoying. Also, I did find out about the polyp. So a little bit too much information probably. But when I had fertility treatment, they told me I had a cyst right near the entrance of like my vagina or whatever. And they were surprised I couldn't feel it. The reason I couldn't feel it was because I didn't go rooting around up there. But anyway, obviously once they told me I had a cyst and I should be able to feel it, I rooted around and I found the cyst. Except I thought the other day, I thought, hang on a minute, I'm pretty sure they said this polyp was near the entrance of the vagina. So then obviously I go and try and find the cyst because I know where that is, right? Oh, the cyst isn't there anymore. You know why? Because it was a polyp. Honestly, this fertility treatment that I had, I can't even, don't even get me started. Anyway, the other thing they found, by the way, the fibroid was there as well. But obviously that was attached to the uterus, they got rid of that. But another thing that they found that I didn't know I had was something I'd never even heard of either. So I'm going to explain this to you too. It's called I may pronounce this wrong. I will, hopefully John will put a thing at the bottom to say how it's spelled. Adenomyosis. So it's Adenomyosis. I'd never heard of that before in my life. So obviously I Googled it. So apparently it's a benign condition where the lining of the womb grows into the muscular wall of the uterus. I'm reading it out, as you can tell, leading to an enlarged uterus, chronic pain and heavy menstruation. So other than the chronic pain, I apparently did have an enlarged uterus. That's what they were saying. It basically said in there my uterus was extremely bulky, possibly representing the condition I've just said. And yeah, common symptoms, severe menstrual cramps. I don't know whether my menstrual cramps were severe or not because I never thought they were. I thought they were bad, but not severe, if you know what I mean, because they would mostly go with ibuprofen and paracetamol. I'd have them for a day or two and then that was it. That would be the end of that. So I didn't have them the whole long my period. I didn't have extra long periods. My periods naturally were like 5 days, and then when I had combination pill and stuff when I was in my 20s and they worked, stop bleeding, whatever, they were 4 days with 1 day of menstrual cramps. So I never really thought that was a big deal. Heavy and long periods, obviously I did have that. I had a lot of flooding. My period, as I said, bled for 5 days in that time. That's only one example. I've had obviously before that I had more bleeding than that and things like that. A lot of flooding and stuff. Clearly that is one of the symptoms. And bloating, which I thought was interesting because I do get a lot of bloating, especially on my period. I literally feel like I'm practically 6 months pregnant. I've never been 6 months pregnant, but I feel like I'm 6 months pregnant when I'm bloated. And I have felt like I'm 6 months pregnant while I've been going through this recovery because I was so swollen. So anyway, this extremely bulky uterus, they said it's possibly representing that condition. So obviously I haven't done any tests, but my uterus is gone now, so it doesn't really matter. But when they were getting the uterus out, they ended up making a small tear. They didn't say this in the hospital either of these things, they've not said in the hospital. A small tear in my vagina, which they stitched up. So I didn't know that either until I got this letter. So that's all nice and new. So another thing as well that I don't know is whether they did actually take my cervix out. So on the paperwork, it said I had a total hysterectomy, and that means that the cervix was taken out. But in the letter to me, they didn't mention anything about my cervix. They mentioned my fallopian tubes being taken out and my uterus, and obviously endometriosis and stuff. But they didn't mention the cervix. But they also didn't mention anything about the fibroid. So I'm supposed to have a follow-up appointment, a checkup, on the 6-week mark. And as I said, we're halfway through that now. We're on the 3-week mark. And I haven't had a letter or anything on the NHS app yet, but I know what they're like. It'll probably be like a week before. Oh, by the way, we booked you in an appointment like this. And we're like, and John's like, I've got work. And it's like, I'm going to have to reorganise everything. It's probably going to be one of those moments. But yeah, they're all the results that I had from all the processes that have been going on. So I am very glad I had the hysterectomy, because if I hadn't had the hysterectomy, then the endometriosis would probably still be there, and so obviously the uterus would have been enlarged, so things like the bloating, stuff like that would have happened. So I'm really glad that I didn't go for the shaving of the fibroid. So it's quite nice seeing it, and that even though I was sure this was the right route, like we'd done research, I'd spoken to like my mum, my mother-in-law who's had a hysterectomy before, John, you know, thought about it a lot for myself and how I felt about it or whatever, and we did all that. But it's nice to get that extra sort of, what is the word, extra confirmation that we did the right, I did the right thing in getting rid of my uterus. Also, when you do going through the healing process, you don't always think you've done the right thing. But the thing I'm loving the most is the fact so far that I haven't bled for the longest time in at least a year. So I haven't been bleeding for 2 weeks, and that is the longest amount of time, without any tablets as well, to try and stop it, because some of the hormone therapy worked for a bit and then just gave up and didn't bother, and I just carried on bleeding. So yeah, that's like the longest time ever. I am hoping I have got rid of my cervix, because that means I won't need smear tests anymore, and since I have issues with the smear tests, I'd really appreciate it if I didn't have to have any more of them. But I think when I go for my 6-week checkup, when that comes through, I'm going to ask about the cervix and get it confirmed about what the heck is going on with that. Is it there or is it not? So yeah, to get that confirmed, because as usual, the communication within the NHS, or at least this hospital anyway, is pretty much non-existent. So you don't get told the full story even after your operation. You have to literally scrounge around, do a lot of research, repeatedly ask to be able to find out what's going on with your own body and what people have done to your own body. So yeah, anyway, they're the results. Just thought I'd do a little video telling you all about them and putting it all in one place, so you know what has been wrong. All of the things I've listed can add to menstrual bleeding, you know, extreme heavy bleeding, and things like that. So it's probably a combination of all of them put together rather than one individual thing. But yeah, so there you go.